Episode 100 of the show, and man, I changed my camera angle today, and I hate my face. I don't think I hate the camera angle if you're watching live or watching on the replay. It's just too there. It's too there. But if you're listening on the podcast, you probably are the winners because you don't have to see my face. Ken Knapsack with you for the Blathering Live, and this is big. This is episode 100 of the Blathering. I started the Blathering as a Patreon-only show, in which I could do, as the title suggests, just blather into a microphone. Wasn't live then. It was my chance to talk about the world. I just left my studio door open. I left my studio door open, and I got to go close it because otherwise the Chihuahua will come in here and bark. Gosh, I wish I had a co-host. I'm glad I don't have a co-host, but this is the moment. All right, so we're going to do this. We're going to close the door. Otherwise, we'll have a Chihuahua interruption. Yep, we did it. We closed the door. Proof we're live. No edits. You know why I was rushing in here? Because I had to pour this bad choice of a drink. Anyways, I started the Blathering, Patreon only. It's a chance for me to swear more and get upset. I was really upset at the YouTube movie space when I started the Blathering. I just wanted a safe space to talk about it. And then I decided, you know, what if we just destroy the walls of this safe space and talk about things more in a public forum? And then I tried to be nicer. That's the only thing I'll say. If you go back to the early Blatherings on my Patreon page, I was really angry. I'm still angry. It's an angry stretch of time for me. That's okay. And I'm so happy you all have let me develop the show. And by that, I mean just get more comfortable hanging out and chatting with all of you here. I want to shout out Evan, as also known as Major Problem, says, ahoy, ahoy. Ranger Donald is here, one of the greats. You're all great. Laserball Video. Laserball Video says, who blathers for thee? He's feeling Shakespearean today. One can to another. I appreciate it. Pablo here, check it in. Pablo, good to see you. Chris Kiefer here. Ken Plume said, I came in like a wrecking ball. I get that reference. Troy says, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Yes, I like that. See, anytime I put this hand up, I form a shadow on my face. And I gotta, all right, don't worry about it. Vermont Mike's here. The problem I have, Troy, I agree with your statement. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. I'm angry and more angry right now at people who are paying attention. I'm angry at the people who are like, nothing affects me. That's a privilege. But I'm angry right now at the people in many different arenas who are like, they're paying so much attention that they're messing things up. That's where my anger lies right now. Ikaika's here. Look at that. Shively, check it in. The Oakland Athletics, soon to be Sacramento A's, soon to be Las Vegas A's. We hope not. Ikaika Shively, the biggest fan, is here. Angry and not paying attention is the motive of the RNC. I agree with Ranger Donald. Cameron Stewart's here. Who says who's angry about what now? Who's angry about what? I like that. Ken Plume says destructive engagement. Yeah, and I think some of those folks are getting that way. We're going to start every show while I gather in the folks. You know what to do if you're just checking in here. If you're just hanging out, this is a live show, and it's a live, like, AM radio talk show for a modern age. There's a lot of ways to support the show. Stream Elements is still a way. That's possible. You can also become a YouTube channel member or a patron at patreon.com/CatNapsock. And there you get a link to call into the show. I'll take your audio here on StreamYard, and you can call in, ask me a question. We'll talk about the question. We'll talk about the answers. A lot of ways to support. Like I said, you can also leave a super chat, super sticker, super thanks. I don't know what you want to do. I'm just glad you're here. Episode 99 was weird because I couldn't get to it last week, and I'm trying to do like 2 episodes a week now. That's probably after Comic-Con is where I'm going with that. And I couldn't get to one last week, so I was like, well, that's not good. I'm setting some goals for myself I can no longer get to. So I went live on Saturday night. I got it all set up, made a little dummy thumbnail, placeholder thumbnail, set it for 4 o'clock so I can give myself some time afterwards to get some dinner or handle some things. And 40 minutes before is when the Bethel, Pennsylvania assassination attempt happened. And we had to talk about it because this is what the show is. We talk about what's going on, we process it, and then when we're ready, we'll talk about donuts. But it ended up being a weird episode. It just, and plus it's like 120 degrees in my studio. It was a bad thing. It was a bad thing. I was like, I want to get to some of the stuff I want to talk about then. We'll talk about it today. But what I was going to do is an old podcast I used to have was called The Three Things. And we're going to start every show with me kind of talking about three things on my mind. And that's why we get people, while I'm doing that, people start hopefully flowing in the show. You don't have your biggest audience right when you go live. You have your biggest audience about 45 minutes into going live. Then it peaks for about 2 minutes where you think you are indestructible. This is what running a live stream is like. About 40 minutes into the show, you look at that number and you go, we're climbing, baby. We've reached the toppermost of the poppermost. And then within 2 minutes, the number's cut in half and your dreams are dashed. Ikaika says 120 degrees. Do you need a fan? No, I have several fans going. It's just that messes with the audio. So, what are you going to do? Daniel's checking in. Says, you got us. What's up, Daniel? Big move in Daniel's life recently. I won't be a part of his events in the Central Coast anymore, Daniel. Congratulations on a big move. Talking about the three things on my mind. The first thing on my mind is unfortunate, but we got to talk about it. It's the passing of Bob Newhart at 94. Bob Newhart, you wouldn't necessarily tell from my comedy, but Bob Newhart is definitely an influence. He's an influence on a lot of folks. There's people I know, my friend Matt Knutson. He had a great interview with Matt Knutson on this channel. Check it out. Not too long ago. Actually, I can, there we go. My friend Matt Knutson wrote this excellent book. Have I Seen You in Anything? And it's a great tale of Hollywood stories from a guy that seems familiar. And it's all positive stories of like celebrity interactions. And my buddy Matt Knutson, highly influenced by Bob Newhart. I am less directly influenced, but like a lot of people in my age group, a guy like Newhart was just there, and he was there as a comic force, which is so weird because Bob Newhart, even from the beginning, even when he was younger, a little bit more dashing, cigarette in hand, different era, he didn't seem of the era. He didn't seem like the other big comics. Now, there's a transition in comedy, 40s, 50s, into early 60s, where I do think he definitely was part of, but he kind of stayed there while things changed, whether it be just the counterculture look or the counterculture itself. You see the transition that Carlin went through, and I think Carlin, as he discovered who he was more as a comic, became who he needed to be. Richard Pryor finds a way to get outside of what he was supposed to be and becomes what he wants to be. And I think Newhart knew what he wanted to do. He had his own unique style, and therefore was an unlikely superstar in a lot of ways. And I grew up under the Bob Newhart show kind of umbrella, where that was looked up to in our house as one of the good shows. One of the shows I could watch, a lot of other shows I couldn't, but could watch that. Newhart, I still think, has the greatest ending in television comedy history. It's hard to replace that one from the Bob Newhart show to the Newhart show, kind of a callback there. It was just, like I said, it was present in my house and in my upbringing. And I absolutely, took a lot from him, even though it doesn't show up in a lot of my work. The comic pauses, the confidence, the ability to just take a breath on stage, very reminiscent and part of the lineage that Jack Benny started. But it was uniquely Bob's. So, here's to you, Bob Newhart. Here's to a wonderful life and a career that spanned many generations of fans. There's people who are probably like, the dad from Elf is God. And I think that's part of his legacy and a testament to his ability to last by just being himself as a comic and a performer and someone who has something to say. and a drive to entertain the world. So 94 is it's any loss is sad, but that is quite a legacy, and that is the first thing on my mind today. You guys checking in on that? Laserbolt says says I'm at the age where people keep dying that I thought were already dead. That happens too. I check myself every once in a while. We salute you, Captain Proton, says Big Lou. Larry Daryl's absolute genius. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a Deadwood connection to Larry Daryl, if you know it. Yeah, and oh yeah, Bob Newhart was in and Out, says Samir. That's true. Absolutely. And that's part of it there. Part of it there as well. My pal Barry checking in on Facebook says Richard Simmons, also a legend. Yeah, we talked about Richard on Saturday's show, and that's part of it too. Of just, it's not unique. It's not something we haven't felt before, but a lot of those people who were just constant in your pop culture life, constants in your existence. When they pack up and leave, you start looking in the mirror a little longer. Had a bit of a health scare brewing with my mother over the last week or two, and right now can report some tests came back very clear, very, very negative. So that kind of knowing that my mom might have been going through a struggle that we didn't want to face yet, knowing that that's not the case now. Counting blessings, and then you go in the backyard and you take that deep breath, and you kind of look to the sky, sun or moon, doesn't matter, and you kind of, take a different stock. So it's been a weird week for me. Thank you, Sean Room, saying glad to hear about your mom. Excellent news, and still thinking of you, Sean, and what you've had to deal with lately too. And that's part of it, right? You look around and you go, there before the grace of God go I, and then sometimes you go. So not trying to get down on that, but it's on my mind. It's on my mind. That's number 3 on my mind. But the number 2 thing on my mind, and don't forget, I am getting ready to take calls. So if you want to call into the show, become a YouTube channel member. Become a Patreon supporter if you want at patreon.com/KenNapzok. If you're there, you can get the Young Guns movie commentary. With the Young Guns 2, going to be a lot easier to do. I have a new device that will help me export videos a lot faster. So we'll be doing longer videos like that soon. Second thing on my mind, I am heading down to Comic-Con next week. And I am going to be performing, as we always do. It's been, I think, every year since 2016, 2017. No, 2017. 2016, I was part of the Screen Junkies crew. That was not a great Comic-Con. It was a wild Comic-Con. It wasn't a bad one. A lot of memories, but that took a part of my soul. But we'll be down, Mark Ellis Live, Mark Ellis and Friends, American Comedy Company, great club. I think Maria Banford is on at the 8 o'clock show, Chris Hardwick on the weekends, but we're there, July 25th, 8 p.m. Great lineup, Malcolm Barrett, Kyle Lewis, Joe Starr, Nick Scarpino, among others. You never know who will show up. So if you're going to be at Comic-Con, let me know. Get there. Come on by. That will be a fun show. It's always a fun show. But it just got me feeling. It got me nostalgic for Comic-Con. And I'm cheating here. This is the 3 things segment of the show. The 3 things on my mind. But I'm going to combine 1 and 2. And number 2 is Comic-Con memories, and it's in the thumbnail. And number 1 is kind of the end of the nerd era. The nerd era as I know it. And how it's becoming more and more apparent that I need to lay down my sword. And I fought in the nerd wars of my generation, and it's time for me to go. And I look at Comic-Con as kind of the barometer of that. My first Comic-Con was 2013, heading down with just Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. Drove down. I think Christian and I drove down and met Mark there. And it was wild. It was a wild time. And Comic-Con is San Diego Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con International, official title. It's wild, right? And I had never, it's been around since the 70s. I, knew the story as it was with Star Wars, how Star Wars was promoted there early on. But I didn't, in the 90s, it wasn't going to go down. In the early 2000s, I had friends going. I had friends who were coming out of Cal Arts, and they would go down to Comic-Con for what Comic-Con was, a convention of comic books and comic book artists and people of that ilk. And it was something I heard them talking about. This is my roommates, and I would just never want to go down. Comic-Con obviously started to change. The X-Men movies, then the Twilight movies, studios realizing they could promote there, and it became something huge. And by the 2009-2010 range, I was friends with people like Matt Key and Matt Mercer and that whole gang and these super nerds, and they were going down all the time. And I would hear these stories. I would hear these like crazy stories. Being one of my friends was like on a ledge outside a hotel, sneaking into another hotel room. There may have been a girl involved. I don't know what was going on. All above the board, by the way. But it was just like wild. And I wasn't a wild kid growing up and wasn't a wild nerd. It wasn't allowed to be a nerd in many ways. And I never thought I'd go. 2013, I went. And it was kind of everything. Like I always say, I get there, we pull in, we check in at a hotel, and this is back in the day where, like, you know, you couldn't afford, as a company, the Schmoes brand couldn't afford, like, you know, their own hotels or rooms. They're hard to get anyways. We're working off of Fandango's kind of rooms. I'm squished in on a floor. I don't even have a room. You're scraping to get a badge even to get the press, and that's a whole other ball of wax. But we get there, and I don't have time to change, and we're outside Hall H, and we're filming with Mark and Christian, Tiffany Smith, and we're filming like people on the street interviews. We're getting stopped a little bit. My profile as the pit boss or whatever was not anything where it would be in just a couple years, but some people are like, don't I know you from them? But they're stopping Mark and Christian and Tiffany, of course, I come from G4, had a little bit more of that cred going. And I was blown away by it. And then we ate a sandwich on the sidewalk by Petco, and it was just like, I was filming a lot of the Schmo stuff, and I'm not a videographer, but I had my camera, and I would film, and I felt like I had touched the larger world. I had the little quiet nerd from Arroyo Grande, California, who got told, don't love this stuff, you can't love this stuff, or you got to move past it, was just amazed I was connected to the world. And then we get to a party, and the first party I'm at, George R. R. Martin walks in. The second party I'm at, I get to meet Robb Stark, Jon Snow, Egret, Orlando Bloom, Luke Evans. I'm meeting them in the VIP area. Friends of friends going, oh, hey, friend, Ken, this is my friend Kit. Oh, pleasure to meet you, Jon Snow. Like, and that's not the experience that's normal. But because that was my first night, my first day in Comic-Con, it just felt like I ascended to nerd heaven. And Mike Fink says, a good word with the lower third burning an image on my TV. Same with Force Ninja, which is bummers. I love seeing your face larger than life. Will it burn? Will that? Is that true, Mike? Will my face and the lower third burn in forever? That's the greatest gift I could give you. Sean Room says Ken's nerd origin story. It was a nerd ascension story. My origin story was on the playgrounds of Margaret Harlow Elementary School in Rio Grande, California, for sure. But Sean, to your point, like it was an ascension. By 2014, I'm not going to go year by year. 2014, the Schmoes expand, but we're still all stuffed, like 5 of us in a hotel room. 2015, Mark Riley and I were stuffed in a hotel room. It was a year, I think I switched my underwear 8 times in one day at Comic-Con. It was so humid and hot in San Diego, I had to run to Target to buy some more underpants. That's a sign of a good con, except for it was the sweaty reason. The parties were great, and, this is where the Wangers, the B team from Schmoes would complain about they were sleeping on the sidewalk and we were going to the parties. I felt bad for them, but I didn't make that decision on either party. And it was just wild. There's some great photos of 2014 of... you could see it in my eyes. I finally arrived. But that kind of Shangri-La is a lie. By 2016, I'm working with Screen Junkies. We have Screen Junkies presents Screen Junkies Central, where we had all-day shows and events there. It was insane. I was worked to the bone. It was not a fun experience. Then we go Collider 2017. That's kind of the peak of where my stock in the nerd world and Collider being what it was, but we lost John Schnepp before that. That was the memories of that year and that time, that 2017, 2018 range was around then. But anyways, all that to say, I have such warm memories of the beginning of it. I have such warm memories of going down and feeling infinite. We talk about that. That's the perks of being a wallflower theme, right? The feeling of being infinite. That was 2013 and 2014 into 2015 with me. And I have such nostalgia for those times because it's only 10 years past. And I'm driving down for one day this year. I haven't actually been in the con for 2 years. I've been down, but I don't worry about getting badges anymore. I don't want to go to that stuff. The studios have started to pull out. It peaked. The studio involvement peaked by 2019. I think peaked earlier. And I don't know if it's not the same. And we have now the fall has started to happen, and that's why I say my number one thought on this is it's the end of the nerd era, and it's the end of the nerd era for me. It's the end of the nerds who rose from the ashes of the 80s. It's the end of the era of the nerds that were always told this isn't for you, this shouldn't be for you. You should grow up. This stuff is for kids. This stuff was always for kids. Get your T-shirt off. Don't celebrate this. And we took over. Not me, not the schmoes, but thousands upon thousands of nerds from that generation. Nerds that got jobs as screenwriters and directors and actors and studio heads and development execs. People who ran and drew, wrote comic books and drew art. People who were story editors for animated shows, comics, stand-up comedians. There was a time when I started comedy, both at the Groundlings and in stand-up, you couldn't make a nerd joke. They had shows for that. They had the nerd show. Go do the nerd show. I wrote sketches at the Groundlings in which I was collecting action figures and trying to find a nerd girl like me. And people laughed because, wow, Ken's a nerd. But that wasn't the comedy they celebrated there. We rose from that. We kind of took over the industry. Unfortunately, you can blame us for a lot of the sequels and soft reboots and the soft swequels. We'll call them the swequels. The franchises being dusted off, IP being mined. It's because we loved it and we were told to leave it behind. And then when we got into positions of creative power and Hollywood executive power in some cases, Feige's a great example of that, we held on to this stuff. We found the things we loved and we put them in a new way and shared them with the world. And it became something, I think, pretty remarkable. But I do think that's changed. It's not a bubble bursting. It's not a Marvel's bad, this and that. It's just I'm looking on the landscape and seeing a lot of this stuff is not for me anymore. Not that I don't want to be involved, but Mark Ellis said it recently. I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, you heading down to Comic-Con this year? I go, yeah, I'm heading down. I'll be on the show. I said, I'll probably come down for one day, maybe go downtown and have lunch. And he goes, yeah, it kind of feels like we're the fifth-year seniors hanging out at the freshman party, doesn't it? And yeah, it does. It does. It does feel like that. And with some of the stuff going on this week with the discussion around the Acolyte, the nerd world the last couple of years, it's not even about the grifters and the always angry people. It is around the people around me who love this, the people around me who don't remember who I am because I'm from the old internet. They see it different. They take it in different. And I'm starting to wonder if I have to give a lot of it up. The conversation around, well, see, I told you the Jedi were bad. It's so wrong. It's so empirically, philosophically wrong. But it's not my take to have anymore. And today I was thinking to myself, I think I have to start letting some of that stuff go. That era is over. None of you were there at those parties in 2013 and 2014. None of you danced the night away with the cast of Game of Thrones. None of you danced with the cast of TV's Chuck. None of you begged Chuck to let you into a party. You weren't there. That was our era, and you have yours now. You're begging other people to get into parties, or you're throwing your own parties, and you're having your own takes. And the philosophical conversations around some of the stuff are yours to have. And that's all wrapped up in this thought of I have to head down the 5 freeway in a journey that takes an hour and a half at most on a 2 o'clock on an afternoon. Will take me 4 hours to get there. I have a hotel under a freeway that I think is called the Murder 8 Hotel. I'm going to die there. I've got one night in a smoking room that's going to smell terrible. And I'm going to go do a show. And I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to press the flesh. But then that is it. The moment I turn that corner, no one will know me. No one will remember me. I'm not part of that anymore. I'm not part of that world anymore. And instead of getting lost in nostalgia, I'll lock away the memories, give a salute, and head on down the road. It is the next generation's fight now. And I'm happy to be a part of the part I was in. I can't wait to get down to San Diego. And I hope to see you all there. So that's what's on my mind this week. That is the three things on my mind. But we're not done. Oh, no. I made a bad drink choice today. Man. I made that's a bad drink choice. That's a bad drink choice. I have lemon Bacardi. Now, a lot of you know I love that Dragonberry Bacardi. And I love the lime Bacardi. There's a mango chili Bacardi, but I like mango. I don't want mango chili in my rum. But the Dragonberry sells out. The Dragonberry, I cannot find the Dragonberry Bacardi. And the good thing about that Dragonberry Bacardi is you don't need to mix it with anything. You can just put some rocks in there, and there you go. But I don't have it, and I don't have anything to mix my rum with. So I said to myself, all right, let's try some of that lemon Bacardi rum. Let's just drop some rocks in there, which I've since melted. It's 110 in my studio, maybe. It's not good. I don't know. It's good. I don't know about all that. Oh, okay. Whew. We're going to power through. Yeah, do you have a question? I saw Kate Huseby here. The nerds did us good. The nerds did us good. Now the next nerds could take us forward, and they can take us forward. Big Lou says, speaking of sweaty, Big John Schnepp is missed more around Comic-Con. Schnepp is missed to me, and there's a lot of ways, and a lot of people who knew him even better than I did. He's missed in a lot of ways. He is missed because there's a lot of people in his class of nerds, so to speak, the class that graduated 5 to 6 years before me, so to speak, in terms of age. He'd be upset with how they turned out and what they're saying, the grifting they're doing. And I wonder if they'd even do it. Schnepp was not an intimidating man in any way, shape, or form in terms of what he might do. But he was a large man. He was very, very tall. That's my memories of John, is always literally looking up to John. He was just a monster of a man in all the best way possible, larger than life. And I think he'd be tremendously disappointed. And I don't know if the people that he would be disappointed in now would want that. I'm not saying he'd go out of his way to keep them in line. John would let you have his own opinions. And he worked with a lot of folks that maybe he didn't love as much as it might seem, but he worked with them, and he was nice to them, and he was solid with everyone. He was universally loved. But I think about that often. Some of the people out there putting funerals together for Star Wars and stuff. I don't know what would happen, because he'd have something to say about it, and he'd have something to say to them. But he'd have the authority to say it to them because he knows them and had known them. I miss him in a lot of ways, and I did not know him as close as others, like I said, only through work, only through experiences at Collider. And that's one thing I wonder, among many, 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 many things. Many things. And that was, tell you what, that was a tough Comic-Con. That was a tough Comic-Con as that unfolded. But we had a great tribute to him at the American Comedy Company that night. So there you go. We're rolling along. If you got some calls, you got some questions, you got some super chats, you know what to do. You can call in. The link is out on the YouTube page. I put it on the Patreon page as well. I put it all there. I did my good work today. I did my due diligence. And if you're checking in on Twitch, you know, see if I can turn on members only chat. You know what? Let's do that. Let's do that. I've always been meaning to do that. Turn around every now and then. Well, followers only chat, subscriber only chat. There we go. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly drop. If anyone's just on Twitch, you don't want to become a channel member, you don't want to become a Patreon supporter, I'm taking a risk here, and I'm just going to drop that chat link out there. And that's if you're watching there right now, because I got some people hanging out there. That's where I got. That's what I'm doing. Look at that. All right. Cool. We did that. We got our first call of the night. We sometimes know him as Major Problems, but we also know him as Evan Osborne Lomax. Evan, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Ken. I'm good. How's it going tonight?
It is actually going good. I know I probably sound sad and nostalgic and all those kind of things, but I feel good, man. I really feel good, other than my drink.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm lamenting the past a little bit, but I'm also I'm right there with you. I'm thinking about better times.
Better times. It's okay to think about those better times because it maybe, hopefully, might inspire you to get back to those better times.
Yeah. So my question tonight is, and I'm here listening, watching with my brother, and he raised a question. So Ken, you're talking about the next generation of nerds. Who are they, and where do you think the space goes from here?
That's a spectacular question. I think it goes it goes to where their experiences fuel how they like anyone, they fuel how they take in the stuff and how they interpret the stuff being Star Wars, Marvel, whatever. And I think that will drive their expectations. That's why I'm seeing it in Star Wars. I love what the Acolyte did in terms of conversations. I love the show, but I love even more what it did to the conversation. It asked some tough questions. And we're not coming to the same answers. My generation of fans, particularly the male generation of fans, are not coming to the same answers as the other generation, which is okay, as I've always said. But it's been frustrating for me this week to see some of the other interpretations of Star Wars that are personal to these folks, and I can't fight personal interpretations. I would never dream of that. And that's where I'm having to say, like, my experiences that formed me are not theirs, so therefore their expectations of what the Jedi are and how they should be treated, or what we should think about the Sith, or what we just want out of our Star Wars is going to be different. And pretty soon they're going to be in those positions of creative power or creative opportunities. And that's their story to tell. And that's where I go. So I don't have an answer to it because it could go anywhere. And I'm talking about the people who look at this all in good faith. Of course, I'm not talking about the grifters. I'm not talking about the alt-righters. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the people who understand Star Wars on a level that I do, but also understand it in a different way than I do. And I think they drive the boat. And I'm just talking about Star Wars because it's specific. But this will go to all things.
Well said, Ken. Well said.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate a Force Center well said.
One last thing before I go, because I brought it up to my brother. Your book, you ever considering revisiting it 5-10 years, whenever? When it came out, episode 9 wasn't even released yet.
Yeah.
So has that crossed your mind in the Mandoverse era?
Yeah, and no Star Wars TV had at least as we know it, had popped up. It crosses my mind, but in terms of actually writing the book and actually having a publisher who'd want to put it out, I don't know if Mango probably would now, but I'm out of my 5-year kind of contract with them where I had to by contract present any book ideas to them first before I took it other places. I'm out of that period of time, but I'd still go back. The editor I worked with is still there, but it's a time versus reward. I think I've been blunt, but I'll say it again. I don't do all this for money, clearly. And by the way, great super chat from Fairs here I'm going to read. I don't do this for money, but I do this do this to survive. My publisher has sent out to all the authors an email that says, sorry, we can't pay you anymore. We'll pay you when we can. And so me putting a lot of effort into a book right now, knowing that I probably won't get money right away from it, I have to face reality, and I'll find other ways to tell those tales.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it whenever, however that comes to be. But
Thank you,
I'll
buddy.
get off the air for you, Ken. And hey, people, call in. Let's go. Let's get this show rolling.
Let's do it. We got, you have to be the first. Someone's got to go through the breach, man. You got to be Thoros Amir with his flaming sword going into the Greyjoy Castle there. So
right
you've done it. Thank you, Evan. Thank you. Evan calling in, but we're going to roll right into another call after I deal with this horrible super chat. Thank you, Ferris Muthana. You will always be remembered, Kat. I'm kind of sad I never partied with you. There's still time, Ferris. There's still time. There's many parties to be had. You never know when we'll get that opportunity. I appreciate the support. Appreciate the super chat as well. Speaking of support, longtime supporter. It's been this might be his first Blathering call, maybe second, but he used to be a regular of my Patreon hangouts, which were so much fun and inspired me to do this kind of show. Mike Fink is on, and Mike Fink and I share a love of breakfast diners. How you doing, buddy?
Well. Can you hear me, Kenny?
Oh, I can hear that voice like it's coming straight into my soul.
It is. I'm just, if I had the strength of soul, I could take this rock and throw it all the way to Burbank right now.
You could. You're so close now.
That would be soul prior to, I guess, episode 7 and 8, perhaps.
Prior to, yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah. And some people might not want soul at all. I like soul a lot. What's going on, buddy? What's on your mind? What's your question? What are you doing?
What am I doing? I am prepping a dinner, and I've got a little miso glaze going on 2 pieces of salmon in the fridge.
Okay.
I'm researching a lemon vinaigrette so that I do that properly. So when the missus gets home in about an hour and a half, I'm in charge of dinner tonight. Yeah.
This is, you don't mean to seduce me, but it's working. I'll tell you what. I'm coming over for some miso salmon. Is that, what do you call it?
Miso glazed salmon, I believe, is the recipe I was sent via Pinterest today.
Look at you.
And so I was a little overwhelmed, but sometimes you get overwhelmed in life and you just got to persevere.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's kind of, I'm in a good mood, but a pensive, reflective, stressed mood, I guess. But I'm in a good mood, if that makes sense. Can you be stressed and in a good mood at the same time? I say you can.
That's how I feel about the potential replacement of Joe Biden on the top of the Democratic ticket right now.
It's stressing me out because it looks like it's going to happen, and I'm there. I can definitely have the conversation about should it happen or should it have happened 2 years ago, 16 months ago. I am worried about the Heritage Foundation's and pretty direct plans to sue and keep him off ballot, keep the whoever the candidate I should say that replaces Joe Biden off ballots in certain states. That's got me stressed more than anything.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I'm drinking.
Yeah, I'm a happy stress on that because I think it is happening. And
I think it's happening. I think based on reports today, and here we go. Brace for impact.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And in terms of being, as they say in England, an old geezer, and that's talking about myself. My question for you is: did you ever watch/enjoy on a Saturday night as a kid The Love Boat?
Oh my God, I enjoyed The Love Boat. Oh my God. In fact, one of my first celebrity sightings was The Love Boat. I have I guess she'd be like, she's my mom's cousin, right? So I don't know what cousin that makes her to me, but my mom's age. And she lives down in the Newport Beach, Seal Beach kind of area, right? And Long Beach area. So as a kid, we visited and we were driving and she looks out. We're in my parents' old Volkswagen van. And she looks out, we look to the water. She's there. See that ship there? That's actually the Love Boat. They filmed that, probably the exterior shots, obviously. They filmed that for the Love Boat. And I felt as though, along when I was at the San Diego Zoo and they said that elephant was in Star Wars, was one of the banthas, I felt like I had met, Arnold Schwarzenegger or something like that. It was mind-blowing.
I also am a fan, and it's become my new comfort. So, like I say, a year and a half ago, it was the Flintstones for a minute. You could watch it on Tubi, and then most recently, it's been The Love Boat. And I swore The Love Boat was on demand on Tubi as well. It's actually on Pluto on demand. But trying Tubi first, there is a behind-the-scenes retrospective of The Love Boat, which you would think on Tubi also has commercials. It's commercial-free. It's like a good 90 minutes with the original cast, plus some of the cast that joined towards the end. Like I didn't realize Ted McGinley was on like the last 3 seasons. Didn't McKinley? Yeah, didn't he? McKinley eventually he joined like every show late in the run, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think his name was Ace. So
Yeah.
Ace
Oh
was
my
the ace
God.
photographer, and
That's
yeah, that I think about it more now than actually am watching it. But I do recommend, if you have the Tubi app, anyone listening or watching this later, to check out that making of, because there's a crazy story about Gopher and two of the other cast members in a cab where they nearly died. And
oh,
yeah,
I love
and
this. I'm hooked already.
I believe that was in Mexico, and
I,
because
I
they
might have to.
yeah.
I might have to recommend this to Mark Ellis as our next doc to watch together on the road. This is
Please,
fantastic.
yes.
I,
I
I,
don't want to spoil it anymore.
I,
But yeah,
I love too about the I'll see the clip go around every now and then on social media or YouTube where people will put together like a list with the visuals of the opening credits of like all the guest stars on Love Boat, and this goes for any show in the past, Miami Vice or whatever. I've seen that. Love Boat just was an amazing spot because you had built-in cameos every week, built-in guest stunt casting every week with the along with Fantasy Island.
yeah. And to that end, not to spoil anything, but they had guests that were to appeal. This was Saturday night when Saturday Night TV, you had like 3 channels, and this was the show to watch. And they had people that were, in their 70s, 80s, and 90s that were part of like the early days of Hollywood. And then you've got the Tom Hanks when he was in his 20s for the people that are just, tuning in to entertainment. So it
is amazing.
It's a chef's kiss of a show.
A chef's. We're talking about Love Boat with Mike Fink here today. Talking about quality television from the past, and there's some deep episodes on Love Boat. I've seen some of those clips. I think we should applaud Love Boat for what it did during its time.
Yes, exactly. And
yeah. Anything else, sir?
I will get back to my meso glazing, and it's always good to see you. I'm doing it on the smaller screen here versus I get paranoid. I get neurotic about certain things. I don't want to literally have the Ken Blathering burned into my TV. I would like to have your face burned into my TV. That's a different story. So I've switched to the laptop.
Love it. I don't want my face or my lower third burned into your technology. So I appreciate it.
Note, thanks as always, Ken. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Mike Fink. Mike Fink checking in, everybody. I love having Mike around these parts. Jen Murrow saying, as you know, I'm constantly watching Love Boat and a rewatch that and Golden Girls. And she said, literally came up at her friend Michael's house last night. Let's get did they do it seems like they might have done a Love Boat reboot. Seems like there might have been a Love Boat The Next Generation at any point in time. I'll type that up while you guys give me the information. A Love Boat reboot. Because if not, Murrow, this is your calling. This is, they had a remake, the reality show. We don't need that. The Real Love Boat. That's bull roar. Love Boat: The Next Wave, 1998 to 1999, and Love Boat in 2022 was the Real Love Boat. But that's a competition. I don't want that. We don't want that. Let me share my screen. Love Boat. Exciting and new. Come aboard. They're expecting you. Love Boat. Someone in 2024 writes, it's time to bring back the Love Boat. I think it's time to bring back the Love Boat in a right, proper way. Murrow, you've got the connections. Just go to your party friends. See you, Cameron Stewart. You go to your party friends and make this happen. Trey T says, where's my BJ and the Bear remake? That's, okay. That's hard. You're trying to, you and Michael trying to figure out a new take. Okay, there you go. You're on board. Let me know. Just cast me as one of the people that pops up there every now and then, all right? Just that's all I ask. We got some questions coming in. If you Trey T says truckers with monkeys is evergreen. That's a hard statement. That's a hard statement. You went there, and I stand by it. I agree with that. Ranger Donald says another mediocre year for the MLB All-Star Game. I did watch about 7 innings of the All-Star Game. I actually went and met some of my friends for dinner. My fantasy baseball friends, one of whom I've known for 25 years, have been in the league 25 years or so, since 1999. And we used to have every year the All-Star Game when everyone was younger, single, childless, lived in Southern California. We used to have a big All-Star Game party every year. And then that started to get whittled down. I've got a great love of baseball. I just don't watch it as much as you know, but I'm still active in fantasy baseball, all that kind of stuff. And I'm doing. I'm going to watch the All-Star game. Went to a bar and grill in Northridge, California, Porter Ranch, California, to be exact. Hung out with my friends, and I think too that's part of it. If you're not going to follow every day, I have to realize I'm not part of the current baseball generation. I still love it as a sport. Like I don't like the new uniforms for the All-Star players. I like a lot of the new stats, but I don't fully understand it. I don't know any of these whippersnapper players. Paul Skeens, the starter of the National League All-Star team, the pitcher. He's 21, 22 years old. He's got acne. I'm watching. He's got a crappy, horrible mustache. I don't know why the mustache is coming back. So many baseball players with crappy mustaches. The mustache is not a good, facial hair configuration, especially if you're a 22-year-old Major League Baseball player starting the All-Star game. But there he is with it. And then he's got just a face full of acne. I did. My 16 to 21, horrible. More especially like 16 to 19. I wanted to live in a cave. So I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just like, I'm not connected to this, was my thought. I hated the uniform. So grumpy about the uniforms. And 8984M says something I think is true. I feel like All-Star games have kind of stopped trying. I think so. I think Major League Baseball is the last to kind of to try that, to try to keep the love of it going, to try to make it a big event. But the NFL Pro Bowl, it's competitions in flag football, but no one wants to get hurt in a Pro Bowl, and so it started to become parody. It started to be just like players standing around the field while quarterbacks are throwing, long bombs straight into receivers' hands. I don't follow the basketball that close, but I think the dunk contest is more exciting than an exhibition game between all-stars who, again, don't want to get hurt. I think. Mike Fink says what I'm thinking. Again, all for change and new things, adapting. But in terms of sports, in terms of in the world of sports, but in terms of the All-Star, I loved it when teams represented their cities that they were in. And if you had an All-Star team and it was there was a Tiger on second base, there was a Oriole at shortstop, a Yankee at first base, you saw those uniforms, and it just kind of looked cool to see them all in the field at the same time. These uniforms are. I get it. It's marketing. They want to sell more of those uniforms. The city select uniforms. Some of them are great. Some of them not so much. I can live with that. But it watered it down for me. And the uniforms were not good. They weren't good uniforms. 898 for him says even the dunk contest, it's decline in quality. Josh says shave those sideburns, Mattingly. And he refused. So, Ranger Donald, don't disagree there. Flickin' Reel has a question. If you got a question, post it. It doesn't have to be a super chat. Just post a question. In fact, if you do what Flickin' Reel does here, it says, question, I'll definitely know it's a question. Have you watched Drop Out from College Humor at all? Do you have any experience with Dungeons & Dragons? I have not watched a lot of College Humor stuff. I've been on some College Humor stuff. And I've been on, I'm trying to remember some shows that used to be produced by people from College Humor. I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing it. Was actually on College Humor? I can't remember because I was on that show. But very familiar with a lot of people who worked at College Humor. But I never was, I never watched a ton of it. I don't know why. Maybe because it's comedy. It's something I wanted to do or was doing and just... either feel intimidated by it or just didn't connect with it. I don't know. I feel like I feel like Gandalf in the Mines of Moria. I have no memory of College Humor, other than I'm very aware of it. My buddy Nick Mundy did a lot of work over there, and therefore when he was hosting his show on Screen Junkies, he'd bring in a lot of College Humor folks. As far as the other question in there, great question. Do you have any experience with Dungeons and Dragons? I don't really. I saw Laserbolt. Laserbolt had a great comment earlier about playing Dungeons and Dragons in high school, but it was not a great a great way to gain popularity. I've talked about this before, so I'll be short. But wasn't allowed to play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons growing up in the Satanic Panic of the 80s. Dungeons and Dragons was recruiting kids to Satanism, confirmed. Dungeons and Dragons was leading to the unthinkable murders of kids by other kids. It was driving people to, even worse than the murder, it was driving people to heavy metal. and perhaps sexual promiscuity. The Satanic Panic was real. So I absolutely was not allowed to partake in Dungeons and Dragons growing up. And therefore, oddly enough, I've joked and told stories of my upbringing in the past. I carried some of that, that's why I joke. I still haven't seen Top Gun because I still deep down inside probably think my mom's going to find out. Like I'm still probably in that mindset. She wouldn't even know to care anymore now. She wouldn't even know. I'd probably tell her, Mom, I finally watched Top Gun. She'd be like, what is that? I don't watch Hollywood movies. I don't watch that. But I wasn't allowed to watch that stuff. So I carried that forward with me. Find out what, Trey? Find out that I watched a motion picture with open mouth kissing, Trey. Yeah, Top Gun. It has open mouth kissing. Pornography, as my mom would call it. If you want to know why something like Project 25 has legs, look to that kind of stuff in satanic panics or moral panics of any generation. The moral panic of the 50s is one that these are. When we point out that the Project 25 is threatening to ban pornography, there's folks like my mom who would be like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." And by the way, I'm not coming up here going, everyone should be watching porn right now. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that's kind of where we're at, and that's where it comes from. The Republicans' long-term plan that goes back to the 60s and 70s, and to tie everything in with conservatism to the Christian right, to proclaim that the moral majority is the true north for our country. That's real. And that was felt for me in the Satanic Panic. So that when I moved on from it, when I moved out of my house and on my own to L.A. in the 90s, if friends were even to suggest to me, you want to play some Dungeons & Dragons, I'd be like, I'd clench. It seems silly, but I would. I'd clench like, oh, can't do that. That's bad stuff. That's bad stuff. You don't want to be rolling dice and taking your dwarf around some sort of map. That's Satan's work. And that stuck with me for a while. So it was ironic that some years later, in 2009, I meet Matt Mercer, who's now perhaps the most famous game master and dungeon master in the world. But I became friends with Matt Key, which is how I met that entire crew. And Matt Key was a big old school D&D fan, and all that kind of stuff. And I never really partake, but I did. We played a game. We played called Mansions of Madness. Was a lot of fun. We play that. And then one night I did, and I've told the story before, so I won't belabor. But one night I got to roll some die. Me and the late great Grant Imahara got to play as war dwarfs, and we had a song we had to sing. It was great. And Matt Mercer was the GM of the game, DM of the game, whatever. And sometimes they call him Dungeon Master, sometimes GM. I don't know. I don't know the rules. Big Lou will tell me the rules. And that was the only official time that I've done classic like Dungeons D&D Dragons. I have done. I did Joe Starr's show Pencils and Parsecs on the network that existed in a house that I can't remember. Right after I got laid off of Collider, they brought me in, and Laserbolt says, my religious cousins were not allowed to watch Donnie and Marie back in the day because Marie would wear boots. It's real, folks. This kind of stuff is real. 8984M says, really interesting how much of old European folklore became demonized by the Christian powers that be. It's really true. You have to trace that throughout the course of history. So many things that are innocuous, so many things that should be considered innocuous were vilified and turned and spun into tales from the crypt, if you were. Very real stuff. And so yes, to answer your question, Flick and Real, that's my experience with Dungeons and Dragons. There you go. Wow. Laserbolt answers, and I quote, Whores wear boots, is what he was told. Whew. Yeah. Yeah, and they probably would use that terminology, too. They'd be prim and proper while they said whores wear boots. That's crazy times. Crazy times. But it was so weird. It was kind of selective. Like, I always say this. Like, as a parent, I'm not a parent, but as a parent, I understand if you feel the need to be protective of your children. That's the dance. It's the dance. Totally get that. I don't look back, as much as I'm talking about it right now, I don't look back with at least some level of understanding for my own parents, my two parents, saying, hey, it's not a free ride here. I had friends who, I'd go over to their house for slumber parties, and we'd be up late at night, no parents checking in, and we'd be watching, either softcore or horror movies that made me pee my bed, and all those, no restrictions. And I'm not even saying that's bad. I'm just saying I get if you're like, hey, maybe not everything, right? Totally understand it. I totally understand it. I give a lot of grace and I have a lot of empathy for the situation I'm not in because I'm not a parent. I don't let my chihuahua just run amok. I wouldn't let my kids run amok either. So I get it. But it leaves a mark. It's indelible. And it's also selective. That's what I was starting to go with this on this blather. It's like I wasn't allowed to watch Top Gun because, quote, I'm quoting, there's open mouth kissing in it. But yet I watched Staying Alive, the underrated sequel to Saturday Night Fever, directed by Sylvester Stallone, John Travolta, Finola Hughes. Okay, part of my early development. And then, there's more than open mouth kissing in that film. But because my mother loved the film, she was a former dancer, fan of John Travolta, it was very selective. So I was allowed to sit and be in the room when that was on. VHS. We had a straight from TV copy. I was allowed to watch that, but Gremlins? No, those are little devils. Why? Well, the people at church say it. They say it. You can't watch Top Gun. There's an open mouth kiss scene. But why don't you watch that scene of them playing volleyball? Growing up, I had people I went to school with that had parents that banned them from reading Harry Potter books. Yeah, and it goes on. It goes on from this. The moral panics continue. We have these moral panics that go on now. Check the RNC. That's an entire moral panic. But they're cashing in on the moral panic. That's what it is. Trey T says, no gremlins. No gremlins. No gremlins. No gremlins. Little devils. They were little devils. Question from our buddy Saul. Check it in here. What's up, Saul? Checking in from the East Coast, I assume. Ken, question. Do you still action figure hunt in stores? If so, have you ever stopped to think about what we're actually trying to accomplish in doing so? Other than the obvious acquiring of goods. This is a deep question, Saul. I really like this question because it kind of ties into something I was talking about at the top of the show, but at the end of the nerd era for me. I still do. There's a chance after this show, I'm probably not gonna finish all this rum. Also, because again, it was a bad choice. This lemon flavored rum. I'm probably gonna run to 7-Eleven. Probably run to 7-Eleven. Probably gonna run to Target. Guarantee I check the toy aisle. Guarantee you, I swing through the toy aisle and I look to see if there's some sort of Star Wars figure. I look to see if there's some kind of Lego set. And I'm not going to buy it. I over here, right here, under this thing with my friend Matt Knutsen's book, I had some Black Series figures, Luke and Rey, Last Jedi training sequence, Comic-Con exclusive from 2017. Jar Jar Binks, Endor Leia, not Ewok Village Leia, but like combat poncho Leia, and Han, combat trenchcoat Han, 6-inch Black Series figures, and some porgs. I had some porgs, all right here. I just boxed them up. I have a ton of Funko Pops and Black Series figures that I'm trying to get rid of or thinking of getting rid of. In fact, I have some of them available on my shop. If you go to my website and get signed copies of my book, of course, I still got one of those Ahsoka left, and I got a lot of Funko Pops there. But I didn't even put all of them on there. I couldn't put all of them on there. Too many of them. And so your question of what are we trying to accomplish here is exactly what's been running through my brain. It's like, look at those boxes. I love collecting them. I don't look at anyone who collects collectibles, memorabilia, action figures, anything. I don't look at it. I don't look down on anyone. I don't fail to understand it in terms of getting it and the joy it brings. But I have reached a point where it no longer has any of the meaning it once had for me. I've got, like I've said before, I've gotten rid of all but like 6 of my. Well, that's not fair. I've gotten rid of most of my Star Wars shirts that weren't either designed and made by Brian Ward or have Force Center on them. I don't. Maybe 1 or 2, 3 maybe that are from the old days of Star Wars collecting. When it comes to my T-shirts, I have my Star Wars hat. But I don't wear it off unless I'm on stage doing a comedy show. I don't wear it. And I did in Seattle because I packed light and I only had 1 hat and my show beanies, and I got stopped. I like your hat. Let's talk Star Wars, and it you know, it didn't go well. We didn't argue or anything, but it didn't go well. So your question of what are we trying to come? I've got to that point. I had to sell most of my Star Wars Legos in February and March to survive. Because that's where my career had fallen. It was survival, and I did. I was able to move them, and I was able to get through March off that. And I'm trying to do that with the Funkos and the Black Series. I'm still currently working for the Y-Files, so I can put some food on my table. But once I pulled that plug, I had held on to them, and I still, again, no plans to get rid of my little plush Wampa, my sideshow Obi-Wan, Grogu, my Daenerys Targaryen. I'm not getting rid of a lot of those kind of things. But the collection en masse, the boxes, the plastic boxes, that if I pass, Grace is either going to just burn them or just going to drop them off at a thrift store, like when no one's even there, the back door. She's going to say, get these things, take them. I don't want the memories of him, and get out of here. And I mean that in a nice way. I'm not saying she's going to burn my memory. I'm just saying I don't need these anymore. I don't have kids to pass them to. I don't have relatives who collect as much. I'll leave about 5 of them for Joseph Scrimshaw, who still collects. And again, many friends who collect. But for me, what are we trying to accomplish? That answer changed for me, Saul, over the last year or two. I have loved all I can of Star Wars publicly and still love it. Enjoyed the Acolyte. Looking forward to everything else coming. Big Star Wars fan, not gone away. But I no longer feel the need to be in the trenches on it. I no longer feel the need to go, hey, I've got this, to show that I love it. And that's part of the appeal of figures. It's changed. My view on it changed. Saul says, interesting enough, the resale value of what I tend to collect, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, being so consistent, definitely begets buying more. Because in a pinch, I can cash out. I'm trying to cash out. eBay, it's impossible to sell eBay. eBay's, I'll bring it up on the screen here. Where it is. Okay, see in the corner, I got this CM Punk. It's a 2014 CM Punk. Never been out of the package. The box is in I'd say 95% good shape. Like there's a corner up above that's not, that's a little squish, but it's fine. Never been taken out. This is going roughly for $185 to more, to like $220. There's another version of this same year, the CM Punk, that's in like pink trunks, and it's like a $300 to $400 Funko Pop. I was shocked when I found that out. Just shocked. So I was like, well, I'm a fan of CM Punk, but I'm going to sell that. I have got several inquiries on eBay, and the same thing happens. And I have multiple pictures up on a lot of these things. The ones on my website are just one shot, one photo. And I get it. I'm not being an asshole here. They're collecting. Hey, can you send me this shot, this angle? Can you take it out? Did you do this? One person wanted me to take it out of the box. Can you take it out of the box? No, I'm not going to take it out of the box. It's in the box. It's never been opened. You maybe don't believe me. It has never been opened. I'm not going to lose the value for you. And every time you do it, the tone is demanding. One person, I'm going to need to see 7 to 8 pictures. Take it this angle. So you do it, and then you never hear from them again. I've had one person was really nice after first being kind of demanding. They're really nice, and they said, thank you so much. Never heard from them again. And I get it. You're shopping. It's the garage sale, people. It's the blathering. It's the garage sale fucks that show up at 6:01 a.m. You're still setting stuff out. How much for that? What does that say? What does it say? 75 cents? I'll give you a nickel. Go after yourself. Buy my dirty, once used crock pot or not. Either get it or not. We all know why we're doing this. I'm selling it because I'm broke or I need to clear some space. You're buying it because you're cheap and you have the space. Sync up. Let's do this. Let's do this. And I get it. eBay is an electronic garage sale. But it has been so frustrating to sell these things. So I'm trying to cash out. By the way, anyone want Black Series, Funko Pops? Let me know. So follow up. The older I get, the weirder I get, whereas it's not even as much emblematic of something that I love, but I appreciate them as objects, almost art pieces. I agree that fully. I stopped reading. I got back into comics in 2012, 2013. I had a pull list, went pretty much every week, then about once every 2 months because I moved away, or my comic shop was far away, no longer close to my work. I stopped reading them after a while. Just couldn't keep up on the Star Wars and Saga and the other comics I was reading. But I still saw they're art pieces to me. The covers are art pieces. I would display them if I could. I had the G.I. Joe line. I think it was the 25th anniversary line. I have all those in a big plastic tote, big plastic box, good condition, never out of the packages. I had those all up on a wall. They were art pieces to me. I'm really with you. I'm really with you. Scott, my brother was all about not letting his kids watch the Potter films because of magic, but he was all about going to see all the LTR movies. Yeah, because what happens is, that's a great example, Scott. The Potter books show up, remember, but the movies, of course, changes the game. But the conversations, and I had stopped being a regular member of any church at this point, but I had family members saying this. Well, you know. Now, we're taking the Rowling out of this, all right? Let's take her and her transphobic ass and put it out to the pasture. But going back to the beginning, I had relatives look me in the eye and say, you know that the Harry Potter books and films are a trick to get kids into black magic. It's to get them into the demonic arts. Said straight face to me. This is 2001. It's no shock that one particular family member is now a QAnon member. It's no shock. Time is not a circle. History does not repeat itself. It's one long line, and it's all connected. And that goes back to all the other things. I've made references before. I was almost not allowed to watch Star Wars. Star Wars just kind of won by sticking around and me loving it too much. Star Wars was promoting, quote, Eastern mysticism. The Force, the feeling. Can you see it? Close your eyes, connect. That was not only anti-Christian, but it was viewed as like anti-American in my house and in my church. And a lot of this isn't like my mom and dad's ironclad law that they put down. It's just this is what they heard. And there was a lot of pressure in their church. We were at a smaller church at the time. A lot of pressure in the church. I was one of the only kids in my church who went to public school because my parents couldn't afford to send me to private school. So I was one of the only kids in public school with the Satanists, you know? You got to be wary. The devil's probably attacking him. The world's going after little Kenny. And I come home like, I like Star Wars. No, you can't. It's Eastern mysticism, which is, by the way, inherently a racist thought. You know what that means. But my parents didn't necessarily feel that. This is what the pressure was. This is what it was at the times. Yeah, hey, 9 forever. Eastern mysticism, fun enough, because it's Western from a certain point of view. Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. I had the high ground. LQ says indeed. Yeah, it's coded, right? It's coded. Eastern mysticism. Because it's not good old-fashioned white American Christian. And so I was almost not allowed to watch Star Wars because of that. When, flash forward to now, you have interview upon interview with George going, I brought in, yes, the Force was like this emblematic of so many things, many beliefs, many religions, many philosophies. It was just this thing. It was part of this myth. And to tie it back to the LOTR thing, but Lord of the Rings was allowed. Why? Well, it was a belief that Tolkien was telling a Christian story in another form. And I think it's possible to say, it's more than possible to say that there's probably some truth to that. C.S. Lewis, definitely. I'm a fan of C.S. Lewis, by the way. I've got a lot of C.S. Lewis books. Grew up with them. Chronicles of Narnia. Got it. I know who Aslan is. Still like the stuff, right? I still like, I'm not throwing out the church with the bathwater. I'm not throwing out the ideals with the bathwater. Still like a lot of the philosophies there. It's the whole package around it and the people who churn that wheel. But it's amazing. Yeah, Scott, you bring up a great point. It was just word of mouth was Lord of the Rings is okay, but not to everyone. I had some friends, it was like layers of it. Trey T says, Screw Tape Letters is fabulous. Yeah. Claudia Dolph's here. Claudia feels me and knows this very well. We were allowed to watch Star Wars because my parents thought it was an allegory for Jesus. Yeah. And I think some of that goes with Lord of the Rings. And again, not untrue. Tolkien has said, I think I can't pull the quote. I'm not a Tolkien lore head, but like it wasn't necessarily an allegory. But it's his experiences in World War I. Some people, there's thoughts of the Ring of Power being nuclear weapons. I think you could follow that thread out. Art is obviously open to interpretation, but yeah, fascinating stuff. Troy says, only Middle Eastern mysticism allowed. Yes, you're all right. You're all right there. Anyways, J&B says, Lion Jeebus. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it works for me. Anyways, there we go. Saul asked a question about action figures, and we got deep into my thoughts on the Satanic Panic and moral panics. And I see where it goes. We got a call. Jared's lined up here. We're going to get Jared here in a second. So I've had this conversation, too, with my mother about communism and socialism and all that kind of stuff. Those are villainous words in a lot of ways, but you have to understand the perspective, right? I keep recommending it, but the Turning Point, the 9-part documentary on CNN that's on Netflix, or it's not, maybe it's produced by CNN, but it's on Netflix. Turning Point, the bomb in the Cold War is fascinating. When I talk about history is not a circle, history does not repeat. It is a long connected line. And Putin is connected to the fall of the Berlin Wall. He was there. Moscow is silent. He wants the Soviet Empire back. all that stuff is there. My grandparents coming from Circassian, my grandfather Circassian, my grandmother from Kiev, Ukraine. You know, it's they came to America with they were correct in their assumptions that the communism and socialism there, as it was presented and run, was destructive. But that's not necessarily what, if someone says I'm a democratic socialist, that's not necessarily what they're saying. But you have enough horrific truths when people who just want power. Communism's a system I'm not here to defend, because I also don't fully understand every corner of it. I'm not an expert on it. But if you trace it back, Marx, Lenin, whatever, you know, it's the government of the people, right? But people, Stalin comes in there, and I now have a tool to gain more power. It is horrible. So my mom and dad had it. My dad was born in Graz, Austria, because he couldn't be born in Mother Russia, because my grandparents had to leave or die. So yeah, they're going to have a view of it, especially being raised in the 1950s with the Red Scare, and Sputnik goes up, and dear God, what are we going to do? The Russians they're going to launch nukes at us, and it's all palpable. It's real. And there's reason to treat it as real. But there's not an adaptation with that. So that moral panic of the 50s still fuels a lot of the things that go on here today. Calls here in a second. Claudia says, yes, my mother was very against the Harry Potter books, and then I asked her why. We were allowed to Lord of the Rings. Then she said, because they were classics. Okay, Mom. Okay, man. All right. We are going to take a call. We got a four-setter caller. I think the first time here on the Blathering. Jared, is this your first Blathering call?
Second, because
yeah,
I'm usually still at work at this time, so I always miss the Blathering. But out early tonight, so I don't even know what your topic was. I literally just jumped on the StreamYard.
That's all we need, man. I just need you here, Jared. What's on your mind? What question do you got? And were you allowed to read Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Yeah. Well, I was one of those kids who, God, when I was 9 to maybe 25, read Lord of the Rings once a year, every year, and then was forced to read Harry Potter in 8th grade.
Okay.
And
forced.
Did not. Yeah. Well, it was the classroom pick, and I got about 30 pages in, and I'm just like, Tolkien did it better.
Don't disagree with that. I have no skin in the Harry Potter game overall, but
I'm kind of in that way too. I'm happy people like it, and I just wish the creator wasn't a POS.
Absolutely, and it's sad because she's still so directly involved. I get that question a lot of like, well, what if you learn something monstrous about George Lucas? And it's like, well, that'd be horrendous, and it would affect probably the way I viewed some of it. But you know, he's not actively involved. He's still maybe collecting certainly money from it, so that's part of the problem. But Rowling is not only collecting money; she's involved. So
yeah, it is though an interesting social question, especially in the day of like 2024, following like even the Me Too movement. It's like, what happens when we finally know all of our heroes are not good people?
It's you know what's funny, Jared. You're tying into what I very much understand is the appeal of what a show like The Acolyte is doing in the Star Wars fandom. A lot of people are quoting that Senator Rayancourt, who I think is an absolute villain, but they're quoting him as going, finally someone's saying it in this conversation about when you're too busy looking up to your heroes, you can't see who they really are, or whatever the quote was. But I think it's valid, and I think it's okay. Like Star Wars and the Jedi, number one, aren't real. Number two, they'll stand the test of time. Period of time because I think it's all something we felt, right? And in a way that we never felt. I never felt growing up as much. Because even if you heard something, it was buried or forgotten, or it wasn't in your face 24 hours a day. And the truth of it wasn't necessarily in your face 24 hours a day. I remember Wade Boggs got into, the Boston Red Sox all-star third baseman, one of the greatest hitters in the game, a player I loved. He would go on and play for my Yankees. Late 80s, he gets involved. There's like an extramarital affair. There's a woman, I think her name was Margot Adams. He like threw her out of a truck. There was all this. And it was like, it was a thing, and it was not dealt with. I didn't have to deal with it as a kid.
Oh, yeah. And
now we have to deal with it.
And it's, been a sad problem as far back as you can remember. I mean, I work with a I mean, I'm almost 40. I, do maintenance for a bunch of young kids working in a restaurant, and I'll play music for them. And Jerry Lee Lewis came on. First off, they didn't know who that was, but then I was just like, and they're all like, "Oh, I love this song." I'm like, "Yeah, he's not a really good person," and had to explain who he married.
Yeah.
And
which was the style at the time. Yeah, no, it's
just jaws on the floor of these 20-something-year-olds, just like, hang on, that was legal? Like, it probably still is.
Probably. Yeah. And I think, it's a conversation I'm not dumb. I'm too dumb to have. And I say that to say anything I'm about to say is just said from a quick off the cuff casual observation. There's layers to it. There's, I think, a context. There's understanding. There is some of the things you hear about some folks, like, Elvis and everything, like, ain't good, but it ain't. I'm talking about some of the early stuff, but it also was kind of par for the course. And I'm not talking about criminal stuff. I'm not talking about assault. I'm not talking about rap. I'm talking about just like, Priscilla, stuff like that. Yeah, and it's not a defense of it. It's just like, we've grown from then. And I'm not going to put someone like that to the fire just for something that we've known. Now we don't do that anymore. We move on. I think you have to give that leeway, but it's part of the conversation, and that is part of the conversation with the Jedi Order and all the pop culture stuff. Is how do we actually analyze while still taking inspiration from those who choose to seek a better path or a higher ideal?
Yeah, and I mean, even a more recent example for me personally, I grew up, still am a big punk fan. And a big fan when I was growing up was Anti-Flag out of Pittsburgh.
Right.
And it came out a few years ago that their main guy was a bad, long-timing assaulter. And they disappeared overnight from the scene. And, I don't know if you're familiar with Fat Mike and NoFX, but he has a punk rock museum. Yep, he has a punk rock museum that the next day removed everything from that band. And it was just like, and it was just, it was a hurtful day when I was like, all right, deleting all that off my Spotify. Don't need that anymore.
Yeah, it's and again, there's some of it. It's when I say case by case, it isn't a. I don't mean to say that lightly or dismiss anything, but it's like, you have to take it in. You have to take the what happened, and I think one of my favorite artists of all time is Ryan Adams, and I can't celebrate his music. It's only recently that I even began saying his name again, and it's because some things came out against him, and it wasn't so much specific actions as it was just who he was for 25 years, and even as that is most of it not criminal, as I said. I don't remember all the cases, but it's like it's affected me, right? You are affected, and you have to process it. You have to try to deal with it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing what happens when you learn something new about your heroes.
Mm-hmm. yeah, and be careful of who we. I try not to put politicians on pedestals. That should be a given. Rock stars are complicated. It's.
I mean,
it's all there.
Yep. I mean, for bloody sake, Bob Marley was an adulteress, and he's considered one of the.
Yep. Look, man.
No woman.
Like I had one of my friends I saw online years ago, on the occasion of John Lennon's birthday, said, here's to you, John. Happy birthday, you lovely, lovely, complicated man. And she was saying it in a way acknowledging that a lot of things he had done were not good.
Oh no,
but he
it
changed
wasn't
the
all
world.
Peace, love, and was not all peace, love, and rock and roll.
Yeah. I remember reading some of the more explosive books around him that came out, and again, some of the people around have fought some of the claims in that book and everything. But I remember I was young and I was reading one of the things he did in one of these books, and I won't even describe it, but I just was like, am I supposed to still like him? What do I do with this? I'm like 16. Like, that doesn't seem right.
And and good example you just said of people disputing that. It's like sometimes it's the more famous example, the mommy dearest. Like,
yes.
Who do you actually believe in that? Because she's got her side of this horrible mother, but a lot of other witnesses are like, no, that's not what happened.
Right. Yeah. No, there's some situations that I've been too close to that I absolutely will not comment on, but like, I know too much. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So if someone's going to ask me opinion, I'm going to be like, I
Yeah.
hope they both get help.
Yeah, no, again, not to make you comment, but I've been following you guys around Screen Junkies, Collider, and a lot of messy situations happened.
Yep,
And
Nerdist,
that's
stuff
gotta
like that.
that's gotta be tough for you because it's your friends now. Like it's
Yeah,
not even just your heroes; it's people you work with, people you go to the bar with.
Yeah, and sometimes it bristles my feathers when people get away with hiding who they really are, but that's just kind of the way of it, and you kind of have to accept it. So yeah, serious stuff tonight, Jared. What's your favorite taco?
Oh, I see. I got that narrow spiciness, so it's just got to be the basic soft shell with just meat and cheese, nothing else.
You're a meat and cheese man, and I love it, Jared. Great stuff. Thanks for calling in tonight, buddy, and getting some good thought starters going.
All right. You be safe, Ken. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jared. Lovely. We're here, Blathering Live. I'm Ken Knapsack. Some of you might know that. Thanks for hanging out here tonight. Got a question? Post it in chat. If you want to call into the show, I'll change the lower third so maybe it doesn't burn into Mike Fink's TV, which I never thought that was possible. Now I feel guilty. Whose TVs? Who else am I ruining? Their TVs. YouTube channel members. If you become a YouTube channel member, you get access to a post that has a link to call in. And Patreon supporters at patreon.com/CanNapsock get to do that too. Before we take our next call from 8984M, I'm reminding you that I will be in San Diego on July 25th. And I will be on the Mark Ellis and Friends comedy show. Good lineup. Joe Starr, Kyle Lewis, Malcolm Barrett, Nick Scarpino, among others. Join us for that show as well. I saw a comment from our buddy. Where is Kev Smits? I saw it. I'm scrolling back. There it is. Smash City Studios. Oh, let me do it again. Maybe he can clip this. Smash City Studios, home of Star Wars KOTOR saga. Kevin says, I'm behind listening to the Comic-Con part, but that speech bringing me to tears over here. You're a legend. Kevin Smets is more of a legend than I ever will be, and I can't wait to give him a hug. I might, Smets, if you're still on, maybe I'll just text Kevin Smets this. I think Friday I have to drive into the con, which I've never done before. I've driven to the hotels, obviously. But I have to leave my Murder 8 hotels to check out Friday morning, and I think I still want to go to the con. You're a downtowner. I know you've moved out of it. What's the best pay lot? Where am I not going to get ripped off? Where I don't mind parking a little farther away. What's the scope? What's the landscape? I have to, if Kev's not in chat, I'm going to have to clip it out and send it to him. Jared said, yeah, I'm staying at the Murder 8 Hotel. It's underneath the 5 freeway. JB says, I'm just now seeing Mike turn off his TV and a pic of Ken's bearded face with a beanie burned to screen. Yeah, he can sell it for $50. On the show now is our buddy 8984M, Kyrie, a.k.a. Brady. He's the only listener to a viewer of the Blathering that's got, I think, 3 names. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, happy Thursday.
It is a happy Thursday. Yeah, we're good. How are you?
I've been listening to Force Center for a while, and listening to like what you've been through as a nerd in the 80s. I never really experienced that because I think y'all changed that in the 2010s. And so just liking pop culture, right? Like Game of Thrones. I mean, I guess I was kind of young to watch Game of Thrones when they did. But yeah, watching Star Wars. We could just openly love that, and you could be cool just talking about that.
It's oddly. First of all, yes, I am a hero, and thank you for bringing it up. But no, I actually like having that conversation. It's part of what I was saying earlier. It even though I feel I have to lay my sword down a little bit, it doesn't mean I'm not enjoying this kind of stuff, because I'm just shouldn't be at the forefront of all the conversations. But yeah, it's true. And there was, when I'm talking about those Comic-Con memories from 2013 and 2014, and again, I'm sharing a memory versus, I'm not just dropping names, but here I am, this Game of Thrones nut, 2 or 3 seasons in, literally my first party. I walk up, go in, A friend meets us. Hey, come on over here. He's a film producer. We walk in. Hey, Ken, this is my friend Kit. Here's Richard Madden, Rose Leslie, and everything. And what that, when I talk about an ascension, what I felt was like, finally, all those years in which I was mocked by the women I liked, or I was beat up or bullied, or told even by reasonable adults and friends, you have to leave this behind. They were wrong. I'm here. And this feels great. And there's some feeling to that. And I'm glad it's better. There's no bitterness or any kind of negative emotions around the idea. I've said this example before, but my friend of the show, friend Stacey Howard, now in her early 30s and thriving better than she ever has before in her life. But we brought her on Early Schmoes, and I brought her on the Knapsack Files. And she had there was this kind of infamous moment in my life, famous moment, I guess you could say, where she was talking about the word nerd and how it just meant that you are passionate about things. And I remember thinking, oh, no, it's not. But it was then. The definition changed. And I think if I had my generation was not perfect, and there's still so many gatekeepers, and there's still so many people holding on, the people throwing funerals for Star Wars are the burned nerds trying to hold on to a last grip of power. I'm never going to be that. I never want to be that. But yeah, we went through those wars, and I'm glad it's changed. I'm glad that you, Brady, much younger than me, so young you don't remember Game of Thrones. I'm glad you can love what you love.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to tie it to the Acolyte, because that's on my mind, because it's just the finale. Yeah, I think it's interesting how the show itself is so much about that too. We're just like someone who's is a hero, but you learn something more about them. It's just, I don't know. It's honestly the same feeling with Soul. It's very similar to a celebrity who you learn more about, and you're like, oh, I don't know, and I don't know, like, what's the course, like what's justice, right? And to be clear, I don't think Soul, the character, deserved to die, right?
I don't either. I do not either. And this is why in the end I really love what a show like The Acolyte has done, is it's raised tough questions, which are never the problem. It's been frustrating for me to see a lot of people openly rooting for the Sith as if that path was the victory. Because this is a myth. This is a morality tale. And I just think the show went away. But again, it was written by a different generation, a slightly younger generation, still similar generation to mine. And it's just written with a different perspective. And it's been great, even though she is in my generation. It's been great to look at Jennifer Landa's relationship to the Acolyte as a woman, and as a woman of color, and as a mother. She absolutely should have a different experience than me and Joseph. And to factor that into where we go with the conversation going forward is very important. So it's an exciting challenge, because I still believe in the Jedi. I still believe in the ideals, and I still think we as a society need people who choose the harder path, that harder path being to do right, to do good, to go to the light. But to be open that there's different questions to ask now of the Jedi that we didn't have in the past. And you're younger than me, so I don't know how you feel about that as a young whippersnapper, but you're right in the thick of it there.
Yeah, I think for me, I grew up in the thick of like questioning the Jedi, but also I think with The Last Jedi, I came around as like, oh, but there's justice for the Jedi. You need the Jedi, right? But I think it comes back down to, like, there's people, they're just people, and people can make mistakes. And there's such a great line by, I think, Mother NSA, which is like, it's about power and who gets to wield it. And yeah, I think the biggest sin that committed by a character, besides people getting unalived, basically, but the main sin in the Acolyte was Soul he had to tell the truth, and until the very end he didn't. And
and speaking of morality tales, that's part of it there, isn't it? Isn't it there? LQ saying it's great listening to Jennifer's point of view. I could never articulate how I feel as well. She does. Jen, and then Molly Damon put out a similar tweet today that made a lot of sense to me. It got me thinking about some of the stuff here.
Yeah.
So I've actually been pretty upset at the Acolyte discussion. I've been not angry. I've been put off balance. I've been disturbed by it, and I'm trying to understand it. I'm in a trying to understand it point of view. Versus I think last week I was even this week, even on Alex and Molly's show, I was a little lashy. I was a lashy outer, and I don't want to lash out. I want to express that I think Senator Rancourt is a villain and the only person who agrees with him is Palpatine. But I'm gonna have to pull back from some of that and try to understand some of the other thoughts and perspectives.
I will say, I didn't like the character. Like, I love the performance. I didn't like the character of Rancourt, but like when I was watching my first viewing, I was like, maybe he has a point. And then I heard you on Force Center. I was like, oh right, the Jedi wouldn't have fallen without Order 66, without the corruption of the Senate from within.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's of course.
They set themselves up for it for sure. And this series against dealing with it. But yeah, it's a larger. We're trying to find the best way to go forward on Force Center 2 and how to discuss this stuff too. And but I appreciate that perspective. I'm scared though. Have you? Now you watch House of the... But no, wait. You watch Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, I watched Game of Thrones. I watched the first season of House of the Dragon. It's a funny thing. So I would just say I have an uncle who works at Nintendo. I'll just say that.
Okay.
So I kind of I want to say so that's how I got exposed to Game of Thrones. It's really young, way too young. Yeah, because we'd get merch basically, and there's a funny story is that I think if you remember when I think it was a season 7 or season 6, it got leaked early.
Oh God, yeah. Was it season 6 or 7? Because 7 had the thing about 7, it had a lot of bad leaks. There was a lot of set photos that came out, but maybe 6 was the season that got leaked.
I think those full episodes that got leaked.
Yeah,
I think
full episodes.
And this is I think why I agree with opinions about not liking leakers is because the people who work behind the scenes go through hell basically because someone wanted to release an entire episode early. This is like it's overtime, it's full days of work, and it's just like for what? You released it a couple days early and it's going to be released anyway, so I just wanted to the scoop culture, it's all about profit, it's all about click, and it destroys art, it destroys the work, and a lot of stuff gets out early that's not ready. So then people judge it on that too, and that's part of the problem as well. Yeah. There you go. I was just wondering because I was. I think you've said your age. I get your age range. I'm not gonna say it if I remember correctly or not. But you're younger than me. But I was at a comedy. I was doing comedy last weekend. I was doing some crowd work, and a girl in the front row looked like Sansa Stark. Long red, auburn red hair, very Sansa, Sophie Turner type face. And I said, "Oh, you look like Sansa Stark." And she literally looks at me and she looks at her friend. She goes, "I don't. Who's that?" And I couldn't even. And again, there's Game of Thrones fans who are, there's people who are not Game of Thrones fans, but she had no idea. Even if you're not a Game of Thrones fan, if I said Sansa Stark or the Starks, you might go, "Oh yeah, is that dragon show?" I don't know. She had no clue. And it turns out she was celebrating her 21st birthday, which means she was about 10 or so when the show started, and I was like, "Oh God, that is a different generation ago." Yep. Yeah, I think, especially because the show is definitely MA. So
I wouldn't want her. Maybe parents should be protective of their 10-year-olds watching season 1 of Game of Thrones. Maybe.
Yeah, it's funny because now, like, my mom's taste is a bit more like, my mom's not conservative, but she's a bit more like prudish. And I was like, she's like, "Dude, this Game of Thrones is really popular in the company." And I was like, "It's really Mom, popular. You would not like this show. There's sex and there's violence."
My mother, and I'll let you go, Brady, after this, but my mother as you've all explained, again, dear Whoop, celebrating the fact that she did not. We had some tests this week that we thought she might have cancer and not, does not. So celebrating my mother this week. But I've explained what she is. First or second season of Game of Thrones, she calls me and goes, "I hear this show Game of Thrones is really popular, but she doesn't really watch TV, or at least that kind of TV." She goes, "But I hear it's a book series. I was thinking of getting it. Do you think I should get it?" I was like, "Absolutely not. You need to put that book down. Do not buy the Kindle. Do not buy anything. You are not reading that book. You are not reading that book." There we go.
Like, can I say one more thing about Kiadi Mundi?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may. If it's Kiadi Mundi talk, yes, you may.
So I think Kiadi Mundi is the Jedi equivalent of a climate denier. He is a Sith denier, and so I think it makes sense that they would be debating if the Sith are back, but they're probably leaning that the Sith aren't, because it's more comfortable for the Jedi Order, especially end of High Republic.
Yeah.
And Kiadi Mundi, he fully believes that I've seen no proof. I see nothing bad happening. I don't feel anything bad.
It's not affecting me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the character of Kiadi Mundi. His death on my Gito is one of my favorite, and I say favorite in the sense of it hurts so good. It's a great moment on my Gito in Order 66. But I think part of what's being played there is him realizing, not to quote Arrested Development, which was a show from about 20 years ago, Brady, but I've made a huge mistake. I think that's his realizing I've made a huge mistake. The Jedi Order's made a huge mistake. And I think he's emblematic of that. And he is a mansplainer. He is a dismisser. He is someone who does not want to face some of these hard truths. He's a political idealist, runs true through that character. And in a weird way, I like him because of it. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, Brady, thank you so much for calling in, buddy.
And thanks for having me.
All right. Young nerd to old nerd. There we go. Alan Smithy, check it in here, says, hey, Alan, by the way, it's good to see you recently. Hulk Hogan sucks, by the way. Yeah, they're talking about an example of learning more about someone you looked up to younger. I was a Hogan fan. Not as much. He wasn't my favorite wrestler, but I was at the time where it's hard not to like Hogan. I was a Roddy Piper fan, though, so always happy to boo Hogan. But, yeah, who he was as a person, it's been pretty clear for a while. And so he's found a home tonight at the RNC. There you go. There you go. I saw this coming. I was good. JMB says, I had a pretty large write-up on Star Wars Explained and pushing back against Ken's perspective on Senator Ray in court. I love Ken, so I hope it came across as respectful. Well, JMB, here's the thing. I don't look at the comments. When I'm on Star Wars Explained, I stay in the private chat. I don't want to look at the comments because that could sidetrack me. Because if I saw your thing and I didn't agree with it, I'd want to say something about it, and then I'm not focused on the show. You're not. I don't know what exactly he said, but you're not alone in thinking he said some truths. I just think that I think his truths are a lie. I think it's true. Not he's lied. I think it's a philosophical Kobayashi Maru that's sounds smarter than it is. And if his thought of my colleagues say they can't envision a world without the Jedi, I can. Yes, there's one other person who really agreed with that, and we see where that kind of ends up. That's kind of my overall point. But anyways, have your own thoughts. I enjoy that. But yeah, I don't. When I'm live, Force Center is different because we're interacting. I'm interacting with you now. But on Star Wars Explained, they have a big enough audience, and they have an audience who knows us, and they have a positive audience. But if I see something in chat, it's going to be hard not to focus in on it and not focus on what Alex and Molly are asking us there. But JB, all in good fun, because at the end of the day, it's Star Wars, baby. And there's a lot more real things in life to worry about. All right, we're getting around to the end of the show. Why? Because I said I wasn't going to finish this rum drink, but I essentially have. Still a bad choice. And I got to head to Target. Why? I need some coffee creamer. We can't wake up tomorrow without coffee creamer. If I wake up tomorrow, got it any time with Ken and Alden coming tomorrow. I think Alden and I are going to debate the Jack Black, Kyle Gass debacle. I am on no one's side, but I understand Jack Black's side more than other people. So it's going to be a fun episode. But I don't have coffee creamer. Screwed, because that means I'm going to end up forcing myself to walk to 7-Eleven. And if I go to 7-Eleven to get a coffee, well, I'm going to get donuts, maybe a cheese Danish, maybe a breakfast taco. And then all the work in the gym I did this week will be negated. So I think I'm going to go to 7-Eleven. I think it's, no, I'm not going to 7-Eleven. I'm going to go to Target. Why do I keep, my soul wants me to go to 7-Eleven, huh? See, that's the power it has on me. Go to Target, get some coffee creamer, and then a dinner, and then some radio, and then you guessed it, some Fortnite. So that's it for now, my friends. Thank you for hanging out. Love doing this show. Thanks for any super chats, and if you're on Twitch and you subbed or I missed anything over there, I apologize as well. We have all chats up, and if you watched on Facebook, I appreciate that as well. Don't forget, on Patreon, you can get the Young Guns movie commentary, or you can just go to my Patreon shop and get it. Young Guns 2 is in the works. That's not just something I'm saying to kick the ball down the road. It's in the works. I found where I'm going to watch it. If you're in San Diego next week for Comic-Con, or you're just in San Diego, July 25th, 8 p.m., American Comedy Company, which is a great comedy club. Mark Ellis Live, Mark Ellis and Friends. Me, Joe Starr, Nick Scarpino, Kyle Lewis, Malcolm Barrett, and who knows who will show up, all supporting Mark Ellis. August 16th, I'm very honored to be part of Horror Years Old, a fun comedy variety show about aging. Speaking about aging, this is in celebration of Joseph Scrimshaw and a big birthday. It's going to be featuring me, Audrey Kearns, Hal Lublin, Laser the Boy, and it is tickets available for you if you're a local in LA. The Lyric Hyperion is where we'll be on Friday, August 16th. But if you go to that little QR code, or you just go to Joseph's website there, you can get tickets to watch the live stream. We're going to make it live for anyone in the world there. So that is it. That is it for now. Dirty Steve, he's the man, says Alan Smithy. You ain't wrong. Bye, friends. Goodbye.